Alright everyone, welcome to a meta update video on the current standard meta that we have right now. And there has been a drastic shift in the meta over this past weekend, which is the weekend of March 26. Yeah. So there's been a lot of changes. But first let's talk about the current iteration of the best blue-white control deck. Lucas Duxek edited his deck, and this deck actually top one in a tournament piloted by Lucas Dusek himself during the weekend of March 19. So the weekend before this, he was able to top one a tournament with this deck, and the edits that he made for this deck was simply that he removed Wedding Invitation and he added more main deck spot removal. So we have the full 4 of March of Otherworldly Light. He moved up to 3 Fateful Absence. He removed the other 2 mana modal card, the one that gives invulnerable or destroys a 4 toughness or greater creature. He removed that. This the rest of is same. The rest of our 4 drops are the same. And the rest of this the same, except he added one mainboard Hullbreaker Horror, which is good for game 1 because it represents a good win condition. So he added an extra win condition. He removed the mid-range value that was represented by the wedding announcement, and then he added more low to the ground removal. And in the sideboard, it's still more of the same. There's probably one more hermit in there. And yeah. So this deck was good. Um, on the previous weekend, or the weekend of March 19, he was able to top one with this. The problem now from our literal last weekend though, the weekend of March 26, there was a very big wave of control decks that went in and top 8'd a lot of this weekend's tournaments. And that deck is Esper Control. So this deck isn't so much Esper Control. Mostly in its core, it's actually Orzhov or Black White Control. It only splashes blue for Kaito Shizuki. So it's a Black White Control deck that splashes blue, and its core identity, its core win conditions revolve around your planeswalkers. Now, why is this deck good, and why does this deck um triumph over a traditional control deck like blue white? So the thing with having planeswalker win conditions is that most of your removal becomes useless because there's special types of removal which doesn't hit planeswalkers. Like a lot of them don't. Um, March doesn't hit planeswalkers. Vanishing Verse does, but only monocolored ones. So you don't hit Kaito with this. Grasp doesn't hit planeswalkers. From the previous deck, let's see here. Blue-white control. The problem is Doomscar doesn't hit planeswalkers. Farewell doesn't hit planeswalkers. Um, Absence does, important, but against another control deck, giving them a clue has more value over hitting an aggro deck with this. So yeah, being the Esper, quote unquote, planeswalker deck, this has a lot of value because the meta planeswalkers in standard right now, funnily enough, they all create creatures. Kaito creates creatures. Wandering Imp creates creatures. Sorin creates creatures. Lolth especially creates creatures. So it's very good. Instead of just playing raw creatures, you play planeswalkers that spawn creatures. That way, you two for one always. You two for one value because you have your creature threat and you have your planeswalker threat. So it's this meta shift is really good in that sense that the planeswalkers in our current meta they create their own threats, their own creatures. The rest of the shell is control. So spot removal in portable hole. We have anti-control with duress. March just exiles things. Infernal grasp kills things. Vanishing verse exiles. We have backbuster, which is your really good juicy mid-range value engine. Meat Hook Massacre is a really good board wipe and it's flexible. It provides the drain where yeah, it provides the drainies. Soul Shatter sacrifices, removal. There's in this iteration, this one has one of Enrica Domnathi, which is just a mid-range tool. That's good to have in there. Doomscar for removal, Sweeper, and Emerius Call as your flex land. If you draw it late, it's a threat. Yeah. So mana base, pretty standard as well. And let's check the sideboard. So let's look for in the sideboard what you get in aggro matchups and what you board in for control matchups because both exist. So for control matchups, we have Stroke, um, Archon. The one you need this for, this is also for. This is a more flexible one. You can board this in different types of matchups depending on what you need from this. Um, but mostly this is also against control. So actually, it's flexible. It's a flexible card. It's a good card. All right, we have the rest. Check for traps for control as well. Enric of Domnathi and Reckoner and Lolth. Against aggro matchups, you want to be closer to the ground. So we have Scar, Farewell. Depending on the matchup, Archon still you can bring in. And we have the Rays of Enfeeblement here. Yeah, so that's just good. Because the current aggro meta is you're either mono white or you're Celestia, which is green white. So you're either mono white or green white. That's why Ray of Enfeeblement is good. It also hits Yasharn, and Yasharn's exactly the 4/4 big boy that he is. So yeah, that's good. Um, what I suggest moving forward in the meta is to actually play this list, this Esper Control list. Currently, I don't have the wild cards for it, and I can't craft it. But maybe if I expend resources. But if this type of control meta, the Planeswalker meta, enters standard, you'd actually want to switch to this variation. Also, if you check the meta stats, Azorius Control, funnily enough, shares a larger portion of the meta now. We went from like barely 1% of the meta, now we're like 5%. So a lot of people are currently playing the blue-white control. So yeah. I still recommend both decks. Definitely, as the blue-white control player, if you're matched up against Esper Control, game one you're at a disadvantage. But post board, you definitely still have options. We still have Hermit. Um, Talents is okay, and then boarding in your Hull Breakers and Leer still good. So I blue white control definitely still playable. You'll just have a harder game one against Esper control. But if you want to play Esper control, the Planeswalker playstyle is really fun. So yeah, I do recommend that. So that's our meta update. Um, Aggro is still strong. If you want to play aggro, play mono white or Celestia green white. Those two are really strong. So yeah, you either that's what's dominating right now. I also saw a list of Jeskai control. It was mostly blue, red, splash white, but yeah. So control ever since last weekend has been really zooming now. So go ahead and try these decks. So yeah, thanks for joining me on a quick meta update. I'll hope to get more recording videos soon because I'll play control decks, don't worry. And that's all. Thank you. This is me, Leon Blight, dabbing out. Stay the mythic. Peace!